This is Elizabeth West. I am the editorial director of the BTN Group, and joining me today is Jo Lloyd, Global Head of Customer Management and Consulting. Jo, thank you so much. So we had a little conversation just a second ago.
We did.
What should we talk about today? There's a lot going on in the world. Geopolitical instability, cost pressures,
Yes.
AI, new technology platforms. Everything's hitting the travel manager. It is a complicated time. So let's just start with the reason to be for managed travel programs.
If we strip it back and we say, okay, well, what is the point of us? Why do we exist? What is the purpose? I think at the end of the day, it is to mitigate risk for a corporation.
Yeah.
When they have people traveling all over the world, conducting business on their behalf. And I think you have to strip it right back down to that. So how can they mitigate that risk? That risk might be traveler safety. Mm-hmm. It might be cost. Mm-hmm. It could be many things. But the reason that we had travel programs in the first place was because prior to that, people would just book their things. They'd have their local travel agent that would do their business trips and their holidays. And so has any of that changed? Some of it, yes. Mm-hmm. But I think we have to boil down to the basics, and it's around managing risk. And you just nailed it when you opened that up, Beth, because we are living in really uncertain times and things pivot quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes if we think about a managed travel program like an insurance policy, mm-hmm. Nobody really wants insurance. Nobody wants to pay for insurance. But, when your house gets flooded, what do you do if you don't have insurance? Yeah. So in terms of the value of the managed travel program, it has to come down to that. What do you do when you need it if you don't have it? Maybe there are some programs that don't need a managed travel program. If it's very transactional, that may be the case. But each one is completely different. They have to understand what that value looks like for them, and they have to be able to answer those questions. Are they able to manage the cost? Mm-hmm. Are they able to manage the security of their travelers when they're on their road on their behalf? Because should something happen and they don't have that in place, it can be very exposing for an organization.
So let me talk about then the how. Because I think the how is changing. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when I think consensus across the industry was you gate the program.
Yep.
You have to have compliance, and that's it. You just keep people with policy, compliance, and sort of restrictions.
Right.
I don't think that necessarily has to be the case now. But if it isn't, then where do you go? How do you get outside the gate?
I think it's about visibility and why do you want to get outside of the gate? Mm-hmm. So if you think about what's happened in our world since we came back from the pandemic, mm-hmm. Our new constant companion is disruption. Mm-hmm. I mean, before the pandemic, if you had to travel somewhere for a meeting in the day, you would very easily say, I'm going to fly in the morning, I'm going to fly out in the evening. We see a lot of our customers, and I'll not just speak as a traveler, it's the same for me. If I have a meeting at 10:30 in the morning, I'm going to fly in the night before. Why? Mm-hmm. Because I don't trust that if there's no disruption, what am I going to do? So you always have to have your one eye on that. So if you aren't in that gated community of a managed travel program, you're on your own. And that can be problematic. So one of the other things that I hear a lot when we're talking with our customers is how do we improve the user experience? What's the traveler experience? Mm-hmm. And how do we make life better for them? Well, that gate shouldn't be so much around control. Mm-hmm. It should be around optimizing their experience. So it is better within that gate than outside of it.
You want to build a program that people want to opt into.
Yes.
They want to have that experience. It becomes a club of
Exactly.
sorts, a membership.
Well, an old
Right.
boss of mine used to say the best thing to do is to cuddle people into compliance. that they should feel safer within
Yeah.
the program
Yeah.
than outside of it.
I was actually just talking to a woman who works in mergers and acquisitions in the hospitality industry, and but she's very keyed into corporate travel. She said Gen Z, they are
Right.
going to do their own thing. They are digital natives. What is the influence of that generation on where we need to be taking programs?
Yeah, it's a really important question, that one. And I think, when we look at some of the technology that we have in our industry, it's always been a bit lumpy. When you have to wrap program policy and compliance and preferencing and it's never going to be a slick experience. But that's where I think the technology really starts to come into play, because as we see through the generative AI, we are coming on leaps and bounds. So I predict that in the next couple of years, that's just not even going to be a conversation anymore, because the ease of access is going to be so much more enhanced. You see, and we can see at the show, the AI that is wrapping into the technology that we already have.
Right.
Is remarkable. I mean, taking my consulting hat off for a second and just putting on the customer management side, some of the ways in which the apps can engage, the tools can engage, is so much better than anything that anyone would feel if they were outside of that ecosystem, and yet still helps them stay within that.
You bring up a really good point, because now, and I should preface this to say that we are seeing those changes in how the traveler is expected to interface with technology, right? The voice activation, the large language models. But the idea of how people interface, and that they're not sort of keystroking their way through a workflow,
Right.
is a very, very big deal. On the flip side of that, and I think this is where corporate travel has always been a little bit superior to that leisure travel experience, is in the data, right? And if the data is back there and you've traveled for your company a number of times and your profile is tracking your experience and your itineraries, and that should start to build a knowledge base of who you are as a traveler. And of course, there's purpose of travel that always comes into play. So there are variables. But the idea that a layer of AI over that data can deliver something more customized and personalized to you is a real opportunity for this industry.
Totally right.
Right? Yeah.
I did a workshop last week with a customer, and we have our Center of Excellence for AI run by Adrian Lopez.
I was
who
speaking with him earlier.
And he said something last week that I found really interesting, because he said, well, okay, so I'm going to show you what the traveler profile preferencing says, and then I'm going to tell you what they do.
Yes, they're very different.
Completely different.
Yes. And that
so
dynamic.
how can we bring the blend of those two things together to provide the optimal experience for that traveler?
Yeah.
Because then I think that whole conversation about managed travel, not managed travel, should they be in, do they want to go and do something else? They won't want to do anything else because it's easy.
Right.
We just need to make it easy for people to do the right thing. So, and at the same time, what is the right thing? The right thing is keeping them safe, is managing the costs, is ensuring that you're optimizing that program for the company.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Jo
Thanks so
Lloyd.
much, Bear.
Thank you for joining us.